Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Raising Healthy Mothers. If you've been following me or listening in for a while, you'll know that I am somewhat of a foodie. I love cooking and I love preparing food, and I especially love doing it for loved ones. I love enjoying great food. It's just always been the case. I was born and grew up in Malaysia, and if you've ever been there, you'll know that a lot of Malaysians' lives revolve around food. We'll literally be eating breakfast and thinking about what we're going to have for dinner that night. It is almost like an obsession. Meeting up for coffee and food with friends is like an everyday occurrence in Malaysia. It's not just something that you just plan once a month or something. You'll go to someone's house and they will say, have you eaten? Fully expecting to feed you an entire meal if you say, no, I haven't. Food is how you show love in Malaysia. And that obviously rubbed off on me when I was growing up. Even though I spent a really big chunk of my childhood being really, really fussy. So when my children started solids, I was really excited to start feeding them. I wanted to do it right. I wanted to do baby-led weaning. I wanted to give them lots of exposure to different foods and flavours. I didn't want to rely on the easy stuff. I just didn't think I'd have fussy eaters because I was doing it right. I was giving them all the exposure they needed from an early stage. I always thought that those parents who had fussy eaters, like mine, were just doing it wrong. They just didn't know what they were doing. How naive. Isn't it just so annoying how naive we are when we're new parents? Anyway, again, if you've been following me for a while, you'll know that I have been blessed with a very particular eater. I think you can call it karma. Karma for being a fussy eater as a child, and karma for being so cocky in those early months of being a mum. Anyway, I did my best, and I still do my best to do fussy eating right, whatever that means, No pressure, giving them lots of exposure to different food, but not expecting them to finish everything or even try everything if they're not ready to. We do family-style meals. I provide safe food, etc., etc. All those things that you probably already know about if you have a fussy eater. I still think that's the best way to cope with fussy eating without losing your mind. I really think it helps to take that pressure and stress away from meal times. And if you need a bit of help with that, then you can have a look at my recorded fussy eating workshop if you want to get a little bit of help and inspiration on removing that stress from meal times. But the one thing I didn't bank on when I was doing fussy eating right was how miserable I was becoming. I went from cooking delicious, elaborate meals that I could savour and share with my loved ones to just about keeping my head above the water with a steady rotation of pasta, cheese on toast and pizza. I'd forgotten about me, about my joy in cooking and eating good food, about what it meant to me. And I know that's so true in motherhood. We often forget about ourselves, don't we? And so I guess when I say I know what it means to feel stuck in a cooking rut, I really mean it. I didn't really realise how pervasive it is in motherhood until I ran this motherhood meal plan reset a couple of months ago in July. And so many people said that it was the first time in years that they had chosen to cook food just for themselves. And the magic of it was that in doing that, many of them also found their children joining in because they had this newfound excitement around cooking great food for themselves. So in this episode, I wanted to talk a little bit about getting yourself out of that cooking rut because I know how miserable you can be. I know alongside the boredom of cooking the same meals for your children and for yourselves is that underlying worry that maybe you're not feeding your children the correct way, the healthy, balanced meals that you would actually really like to. And just before I kind of dive in, I want to say I do worry a lot about this with my fussy eater. I worry a lot about whether he's getting the right food, what his microbiome is doing, whether he's getting everything he needs to grow. And I guess I want to reassure you by saying that you're probably doing a really brilliant job feeding them. You're probably doing the best you can do. You just can't force them to eat food that they're not ready to try. And so I know if you're anything like me, you are really doing your best. But you can also be a really good role model. And more often than not, that starts with getting yourself out of this cooking rut so that you can set the example of what it looks like to actually enjoy food. Because remember, our children are listening and watching everything we do. They are sponges. And so if we can role model what we want them to be, what we would like them to do, then that's going to get us a little bit further quicker. So why do we get into this cooking rut in the first place? I talked about how I got into it, but maybe here are a few more reasons that you might be getting into it. So number one, you're busy making everyone else's favourite meals, forgetting that you matter too. So before you had kids, the only person that you had to satisfy was probably yourself, and maybe your partner if you'd already started living together. But you're both adults and you both understand a bit of give and take, and hopefully have an appreciation for the pleasure of being cooked for and sharing good food together. But then your kids come along and they are selfish and they have strong opinions. And suddenly your favourite meals drop off the menu in favour of fish fingers and chips, maybe 3 times a week. And while that is a great way of getting them to eat something, anything, if that is their favourite food, it really does often mean putting your personal preferences aside. Because even if you're not actually eating those fish fingers, I bet the idea of cooking a whole different meal at the same time, if you're going to do family style meals, or, maybe after they've gone to bed where it's just so late, it's just too exhausting to think about that. So you're probably still falling back on those easy options, even if you're not actually eating those fish fingers. The second reason is you're sleep deprived and exhausted, and it's really hard to make decisions in those moments. Whether you call it brain fog, decision fatigue, baby brain, the mother load, half an hour before dinner needs to be on table is the worst time to start trying to decide what to cook. And I know, because I have been there. I would literally open the fridge at 5 o'clock when I need to start cooking and go, I don't know what to cook. I've got nothing in here. I have no inspiration. I stopped thinking ahead about what I could prepare and what I could shop for, and I just survived, making whatever is easiest to just throw together in the moment, which was usually just putting some pasta in the pan. And so that by the time you come to actually cook dinner, you've probably spent all day making decisions, satisfying others, doing everything for others, what everyone else needs. Dinner is just one step too far to start thinking on your feet for. And so it's easy to fall back on those easy options. And the third reason is you never have the right ingredients in when you see a recipe that you like. So gone are those lovely languid days of flicking through cookbooks or stumbling across a great sounding recipe and thinking that, I can just nip out to the shops and get what you need. You just can't do that as a mum, right? If I know you, I think you follow 2 different types of accounts on Instagram. One is those mum influencers who you're hoping to get some inspiration to feed your fussy eater. Maybe they tell you what to cook for your fussy eaters or hacks on how to get them to eat more vegetables. But then when you actually look at their definition of family-friendly food, it never really is going to work for you, is it? If my fussy eater will not eat sauce with their pasta, so there's no way I can ever hide a whole load of butter beans in there, or 4 different types of vegetables. So yes, it's inspiring maybe to follow those influencers out there, but somehow the message that they're trying to get across to you just hasn't reached your child yet. And then the other type of account I bet you're following is those really gorgeous cake decorators and pastry makers who churn out these beautiful looking masterpieces. There's one French one who does it topless most of the time, I think, so that's a pretty inspiring one to follow. A feast for the eyes maybe, but it's not practical in your actual reality. And while escaping your reality can be lovely, it can be a nice way to kind of have a few minutes to just let your brain relax, it's not going to get food on the table, is it? Because once your children establish their preferences, it becomes easiest to just buy the same ingredients week in, week out, not really planning ahead, thinking ahead to what you actually want to eat. It's easy to then autopilot on the online shop or in the supermarket. And then when you don't plan ahead, it's just too stressful to make the decisions on the fly when you're actually at the shops. You could just trying to decide, what cut of meat to get, or what ingredients should I get in case I decide to make a different meal than I normally do. So it's easy to fall back on those safe meals that are easy to prepare with the staples in your cupboard and in the freezer that that they are going to eat. Whether that's actually what you want to eat is a moot point. And then number 4, of course, is the fact that you have fussy eaters who just won't eat the same thing as everyone else. And this is obviously what happened to me and how I fell into my cooking rut. I really know how much catering to fussy eaters is like mental gymnastics, and more often than not, it really is just the easiest option to go for the safe food. And I still do that. We will have at least 2, if not 3 meals a week that are quick, child-friendly staples like cheese on toast, which, by the way, a year ago, my fussy eater would never have touched. So, things do change. But yes, I get it. We do fall back on those easy staples a lot, and especially on those weeks when I just haven't had a chance to think ahead. But my cooking rut happened. That was the point when I realised that I was just feeling pretty miserable, was when I realised I was falling back on those easy meals every single day, and I was feeling so unfulfilled and frankly undernourished. As a nutritional therapist, I was advising my clients to make sure that they ate 3 fistfuls of vegetables every single meal time and ensuring that they have a really good variety of different vegetables. But I could barely manage eating a carrot like whole while I was cooking pasta for the 3rd time in a week. Like, I felt so hypocritical. And honestly, that's when that guilt and worry about whether I was feeding my family healthy, balanced meals was starting to come in. And I was aware that the same meals, week in, week out, with the same rotation of 3 vegetables I knew that they'd actually eat, was limiting my meals and causing me to fall into this vicious cycle where my children weren't getting exposed to new food, thus limiting their repertoire even more. And that isn't the sort of way I wanted my children to be. Although I embrace the fussy eating now, I do get that the only way they're going to get out of it and explore new food is if I'm there to role model. And obviously I was depriving myself of that pleasure of eating food that I actually enjoy. So those are 4 reasons that I think you could be in a cooking rut. I'd love to know if you resonate with any of those. But now that you know that you're in a cooking rut, how do you get out of it? So here are 4 ways that I think can help, and has certainly helped me. So number 1, put yourself first. Remind yourself what you love eating. What are your favorite flavors? I'd say this was probably the biggest game changer to me when I was like, do you know what? I am tired of putting everyone else first. I want to cook meals that I want to eat. I remembered how much I used to love cooking Ottolenghi style veg-focused sharing plates. I remembered that my favorite meals were those sharp, fresh flavors of Vietnam and Thailand. I was so very tired of eating cheese all the time. I like cheese, but not every day. So I started to think about what I wanted sometimes. I started involving my children in meal planning, asking them what they wanted to eat in the week, and then talking about the meals that I wanted to eat and adding them in for myself. And I would talk to them about which elements of the meals that I could prepare that I knew he'd eat, and here are some things that I know that I'm going to love. And involving them in the process helps to give them the chance to know that their own preferences are heard and understood, and allowed me to role model explaining my preferences, showing them that everyone in the family matters. Everyone gets a favourite choice every single week. And yes, they get upset if they're not getting their exact favourites every single day, but over time they get to understand that actually it's not just about them. The world doesn't revolve around them, even though that is how it easily happens, isn't it? So my second tip is to save recipes that you like the sound of for yourself, whether that's on Instagram or if you're browsing on the internet or if you're looking through your cookbooks. Don't just choose recipes that you think are going to help your fussy eater eat different food, or that are going to fit in with their preferences. Start following Instagram accounts who cook food you like the sound of and feel able to make for yourself. Maybe you could start having a folder in your Instagram save section that's about the food that you want to cook, you like the sound of. Food that maybe will push you out of your comfort zone when it comes to cooking as well. And you never know, you might find that your fussy eater starts trying new food. A couple of weeks ago, my husband made prawns in coconut milk, which is a Filipino dish that he grew up with. And we'd prepared something completely separate for our children that we knew they would eat because we were cooking for family. Do you know what happened? My son was sitting next to me at the table, and I wasn't really paying much attention to what he was doing, but I saw his fingers slowly reach out and nick a prawn off of my plate. He hasn't eaten prawns for like 3 years. He picked it up, he touched it, he smelt it, he licked his finger, and he thought, clearly, that sounds okay. That feels okay. So he gave it a little nibble, and then he put it back on my plate. And then a few minutes later, he came back and ate the whole thing, and Sonny declared that he loves prawns. And it was revelationary, and it really reinforced the fact that actually family style eating is important, because if I hadn't eaten with them at the table at the same time, if I hadn't cooked those prawns for us that day, he never would have had the chance to even consider trying it. So my third tip is to sign up to a veg box or a produce box, or something where you don't have as much control over what you're going to get. So good produce has always mattered a lot to me, and for most of my independent adult life I have had a veg box delivered on and off over the years. At the moment I use Riverford because I like knowing that a good proportion of my vegetables in my fridge are organic, and I like that in Riverford you can choose to get a UK only box. So in season, you can get great vegetables. I have to admit, in winter, I do stop getting the UK only box because it does get a bit tiring when you just get turnips and potatoes every single week. But yes, I do think veg boxes are great. So if you want to try them out, then you can head over to the show notes where I share my referral code so you can get a £50 credit to your account and I get a little kickback as well. But I love getting a veg box because it really forces me to get out of my comfort zone. I have to get creative. Sometimes I get new vegetables I have no idea what to do with. In fact, I still have a couple of summer turnips from a few weeks ago that I haven't worked out what to do with yet. And I love that. You know, you get veg in there that you just don't know what to do with. So you have to look up new recipes to try, or think creatively about how to use this massive kohlrabi or massive celeriac. And trying new vegetables is brilliant for getting more variety into your diet, which your gut microbiome loves. It thrives on that variety. It thrives on diversity. And if we get into this rut of only cooking the same vegetables every single week, your microbiome is going to suffer for it. And the other reason I really love getting a veg box is that I get to share that excitement and wonder about new vegetables with my children. Unpacking a food shop is like one of my top tips for exposing children to new food away from the dinner table, because it still counts. If they are touching and smelling and talking about the food, the vegetable that they're unpacking with you, even if they're not actually got it on their plate and trying it, it still counts as an exposure. We discuss what it feels like, what it smells like. We wonder what it's going to taste like, what the texture is going to be. Is it going to be crunchy? Is it going to be soft? Is it going to be different if it's raw or cooked? We might look up recipes together, and then if they're interested, I'll invite them in to help me cook with that vegetables. It might not lead up to them actually eating it, but my excitement of, wow, look at this new exciting vegetable, is infectious. And I love it when my children unpack the box with me and pick out an aubergine and go, look, mummy, it's your favourite vegetable. It helps them to understand that we all have different likes and dislikes. And I really think that's important. I really think that is key to helping them to grow and mature in a way that is healthy when it comes to food. And then finally, my biggest tip for getting out of that cooking rut is to remove that decision-making process as much as possible. Make it easy. Automate a meal plan wherever you can. So there are so many ways to do this. I've had clients who just wanted to have a 6-week rotation of meals. So they would just choose 6 weeks worth of meals and then they could just rotate it. Every 6 weeks they would, rotate that meal plan. And then they can automate their online shop. So it would auto-populate every week. They'd get that shop was already there and they just had to add in anything extras that they needed and then off they go. And that really saves time, of course, but it also just takes that decision fatigue away. Or another way you can do it is to theme each weekday to remove some of that decision making. So if you know that on a Monday you have meat-free Monday, for example, then you're only going to look for vegetarian meals to cook that day. And honestly, it was that spirit of automating a meal plan that inspired my latest free resource. I'd always shied away from providing meal plans because I just was like, well, my preferences aren't the same as yours. My fussy eater isn't the same as yours. I don't want to tell you what to eat or what to cook to get your fussy eater to eat more food, because I know that what mine will eat is not going to be the same as what yours is going to eat. But honestly, I was really so blown away by the feedback from the meal plan reset that I ran back in July that I realized actually a lot of people do love a meal plan. They love having that decision-making process taken away and just being told what to eat. And it's, I guess, that spirit of trying new things and putting yourself first as well that really kind of caught on during that week together. But I really didn't want to create another rigid meal plan with recipes full of ingredients that maybe you don't like, maybe you'll only use once, maybe you'll forget about or won't work for you and your family. I think that 1 week meal plan like reset is a great format because it just kind of puts yourself first for 1 week, right? But in the long term, there's no longevity in just that 1 week meal plan. Like, I want you to take ownership. I want you to feel that you can just do it yourself. Otherwise, what are you going to do when that week is up and you're going back to your cooking rut, right? And so I thought, actually, maybe what people would like to know is how I, a nutritional therapist and actual chef, got out of my cooking rut and cooked for myself instead. Because the way I cook for myself, I don't really meal plan that well. But what I do is that I have some basic templates, some basic recipe templates, using some basic formulas. And I follow where my mouth wants to take me that day, using ingredients that I know I have in the fridge and accounting for my fussy eater. So that's the free resource that I created. I've called it Hassle-Free Template Meal Guide for busy mums, because I know you're busy and I know you're looking for a hassle-free life. And the way it works is there are 6 recipe formulas in there, 6 completely different meals. But I'm not telling you exactly what to eat. I'm just giving you the formula so you can cook it yourself. You can decide, what are my taste buds telling me today? Where do I want to go? And what is my fussy eater actually going to eat out of this formula, out of this template? And then I've also given you 7 suggestions on where your taste buds could take you. So again, it's not telling you that this is what you must eat on a Monday, but it's just saying, look, here are 7 different ideas. Here are some 7 different flavors you could go for. Here are some great combinations that I love putting together myself. And then what I've also included in there is a fillable, customizable table, meal plan table with drop-down boxes. So if you download the Google Docs option, you get drop-down box table that you can actually just build your meal plan within the document itself. So it just populates itself. And then you just have to go back and just have a look at the ingredients that you need, put it in your shop or on your shopping list, and you're good to go. I didn't really know how it would land. I just thought, hey, this seems like something that could be quite useful. But the feedback has been phenomenal, like so much excitement on trying this new way of meal planning. A lot of people were saying how flexible it is and how it's actually given them enough recipes for a lifetime. Well, I'm not sure about that, but the 7 ideas with 6 formulas does give you 42 different meal ideas. So you could essentially plan 6 weeks of meals within that one document itself. So you don't have to go and find that recipe that you found once and forgot to bookmark, or go back to your cookbooks and try and find that recipe that you forgot to mark down. So I do think it's a really helpful resource, and if that sounds like it's going to be really helpful to you, then you can head to my show notes and download it using the link there. Anyway, to summarize, if you are ready to get out of your cooking rut, then my top tips are to put yourself first. Remind yourself what your personal food preferences are. Don't forget, you matter too. Number 2, save recipes that you like the sound of for yourself, not in a desperate attempt to get your fussy eater to expand their repertoire, but for you. What are you going to enjoy? Get a veg box so you are forced to try new recipes and new vegetables, and then automate your meal plans to remove that decision fatigue. So if you did like the sound of my hassle-free template meals guide, then head to tashadecruz.com/template to download it, and you can also find the link in the show notes. I really think this guide is going to save you so much time and energy and remove that decision fatigue, at least for some of the time. And let me know, do you feel like you're in a cooking rut? Of the 4 tips that I have offered, which one are you going to try out first? You can head over to Instagram at Tasha Decruz and follow me to start that conversation, or you can email me on tasha@tashadecruz.com. Thank you so much for listening in to this week's episode of Raising Healthy Mothers. I look forward to seeing you next week again for another episode. Bye for now.